On the 26th of December, 1900, the lighthouse tender Hesperus arrived at Eilean Mor, a remote island in the Flannan Isles, some 32 kilometers west of the Scottish mainland. The purpose of the visit was routine: to relieve one of the keepers and deliver supplies. Captain James Harvey noted the absence of the customary flag on the staff and the fact that no one was waiting at the landing stage. After sounding the ship's whistle and firing a signal flare with no response, a relief keeper named Joseph Moore was rowed ashore to investigate. He found the lighthouse deserted. The 3 men stationed there, principal keeper James Ducat, second assistant Thomas Marshall, and occasional keeper Donald McArthur, had vanished. They were never seen again. The Flannan Isles are an archipelago of 7 small, uninhabited islands in the North Atlantic. They are known locally as the 7 Hunters. For centuries, they have been a place of superstition. Shepherds from the nearby Isle of Lewis would bring sheep to graze on the island's sparse grasses, but would never stay the night, believing the land to be frequented by spirits or otherworldly presences. The largest of the islands, Eilean Mor, or Big Isle, is a mass of dark rock and turf rising 88 meters from the sea. It is home to seabirds, rabbits, and a ruined 7th century chapel dedicated to Saint Flannan, from whom the islands take their name. The decision to build a lighthouse on Eilean Mor was a practical one. The waters around the Outer Hebrides are treacherous, and a light was needed to guide shipping safely around Cape Wrath. Construction began in 1895 and was completed in 1899. The structure, designed by David Allen Stevenson, was a testament to modern engineering. A 23-meter tower capable of projecting a 140,000 candle power beam across the ocean. A small railway was built to haul supplies from the landing stages, one on the east, one on the west, up the steep cliffs to the keeper's quarters. The lighthouse was a solitary outpost of order and technology in an ancient and wild place. Life for a lighthouse keeper at the turn of the 20th century was one of immense isolation and routine. At a rock station like Eilean Mor, keepers worked in shifts of several weeks, followed by a period of leave ashore. Their duties were precise. The lamps and lenses had to be cleaned daily, the oil reservoirs kept full, the clockwork mechanism for the revolving light wound, and a constant watch maintained. The Northern Lighthouse Board regulations were strict, and paramount among them was the rule that the lighthouse must never be left unmanned. At all times, one keeper was required to be on duty at the station. The 3 men on duty in December of 1900 were a team of experienced professionals. James Ducat, the principal keeper, was 43 years old and a veteran of the service with over 2 decades of experience. He was a married man with 4 children and had reportedly accepted the post at Eilean Mor with some reluctance, citing its isolation. Thomas Marshall was the second assistant, a man in his late 20s with several years of service. The third man was Donald McArthur, an occasional keeper in his 40s. McArthur was a seasoned mariner, known as a tough man, who was filling in for William Ross, the first assistant, who was on sick leave. These were not men prone to panic or dereliction of duty. The last recorded communication from the lighthouse was on the 7th of December, 1900, when the superintendent of the Northern Lighthouse Board, Robert Muirhead, conducted a routine visit. He found the station in good order and the keepers in good spirits. He was the last known person to see them alive. The subsequent timeline of their disappearance has been reconstructed from a series of logs, reports, and observations. The first indication of trouble was recorded in the keeper's own logbook. An entry dated the 12th of December, made by Thomas Marshall, noted, "Severe winds the likes of which I have never seen before in 20 years. He wrote that the principal keeper, James Ducat, had been very quiet and that Donald McArthur had been crying. This final detail was considered highly unusual for a man of McArthur's reputation. The entry for the 13th of December stated that the storm was still raging and that all three men had been praying. The tone of these entries is difficult to reconcile with the known facts. All three were experienced keepers, stationed in a newly built lighthouse 150 feet above sea level, a structure designed to withstand the worst of the Atlantic gales. More perplexing is the fact that there were no reports of any storms in the area on the 12th, 13th, or 14th of December from surrounding coastal stations or from ships in the region. The weather, according to all other sources, was calm. The final entry in the logbook was made on the morning of the 15th of December. It read, "Storm ended, sea calm. God is over all." A separate slate for noting daily chores indicated that the routine work for that morning had been completed. The lamps were trimmed, the lenses polished, and the oil fountains refilled, ready for the night ahead. This was the last message from Eilean Mor. At midnight, on the 15th of December, the steamer Arctur, on its passage to Leith, passed the island. Its captain noted in his log that the Flannan Light was not operational. When the Arctur docked in Leith 3 days later, this information was relayed to the Cosmopolitan Line steamer's headquarters. For reasons that were never fully clarified, the information was not immediately passed on to the Northern Lighthouse Board. The relief vessel, the Hesperus, was scheduled to sail to Eilean Mor on the 20th of December, but was delayed by the arrival of an actual storm that brought severe weather to the coast. It was not until midday on the 26th of December that the vessel arrived at the island. Captain Harvey found the conditions unsettling. The landing stage was empty. He ordered the ship's whistle blown and a flare fired. There was no response from the lighthouse. Relief keeper Joseph Moore was put ashore in a small boat. He ascended the long, steep flight of stairs carved into the cliff face. He later reported a growing sense of foreboding as he climbed. At the top, he found the gate to the compound closed, as was the main door to the living quarters. Both were unlocked. Inside, the scene was one of quiet and profound stillness. The kitchen clock had stopped. A fire had not been lit in the hearth for several days. On the kitchen table, an overturned chair lay on the floor, as if someone had risen from it in great haste. Moore searched the small building. The beds were unmade. He found no sign of the keepers. In the entrance hall, he made a crucial observation. Of the 3 sets of heavy oilskins used for working in foul weather, only one remained. 2 sets were missing. Joseph Moore returned to the Hesperus with the news that the station was deserted. Captain Harvey immediately sent a telegram to the Northern Lighthouse Board headquarters in Edinburgh. It read, "A dreadful accident has happened at Flannan's. The 3 keepers, Ducat, Marshall, and the Occasional, have disappeared from the island. The clocks were stopped and other signs indicated that the accident must have happened about a week ago. Poor fellows, they must have been blown over the cliffs or drowned trying to secure a crane or something like that. Moore and several crewmen from the Hesperus were left on the island to operate the light." On the 29th of December, Superintendent Robert Muirhead arrived to conduct a formal investigation. His methodical search of the island uncovered significant physical evidence. While the east landing was untouched, the west landing showed signs of extreme weather damage. A supply box, which was normally secured in a crevice 33 meters above sea level, had been broken open and its contents scattered. Iron railings along the pathway were bent and twisted out of their foundations. A heavy block of stone, weighing over a ton, had been dislodged and moved. Most disturbingly, on the very top of the cliff, more than 60 meters above the waves, a section of turf had been ripped away from the cliff edge. This evidence pointed to a sea of incredible power, with waves having broken over the very top of the island. The official conclusion, submitted by Muirhead, posited that on the afternoon of the 15th of December, during a lull in the storm they had been experiencing, 2 of the keepers, Ducat and Marshall, went down to the west, landing to secure the ropes and crane. According to this theory, an exceptionally large rogue wave unexpectedly swept up the cliff face, carrying both men into the sea. The third keeper, McArthur, who would have been on duty in the lighthouse, saw the event, and in a desperate attempt to help his colleagues, rushed out. This would explain why his oilskin coat was left behind. He too, the theory concluded, was then swept away by another wave. Investigators considered this the most plausible scenario. It accounted for the 2 missing sets of oilskins, the damage to the west landing, and the complete disappearance of the men. However, several points remained unresolved. The Northern Lighthouse Board's own regulations strictly forbade all 3 keepers from leaving their posts at the same time. It seemed a flagrant breach of protocol for experienced men. Furthermore, if McArthur had left in a panic, it is unclear why he would have taken the time to close the main door and the compound gate behind him. And despite extensive searches, no bodies were ever recovered from the sea. One theory posits that the logbook entries were not literal descriptions of weather, but of a psychological storm. The isolation may have caused a conflict among the men. It is speculated that McArthur, known for his temper, may have instigated a fight near the cliff edge, resulting in all 3 men falling to their deaths. The overturned chair is sometimes cited as evidence of a sudden dispute. Following this line of thought, one man may have murdered the other 2 before taking his own life. Without bodies or forensic evidence, this remains pure speculation. A more esoteric explanation suggests that the men were victims of a paranormal event. This theory draws on the island's long-standing reputation as a place of supernatural power. Some have suggested that the men were taken by a creature from the sea, or that the strange voices that later keepers claimed to hear on the wind were evidence of a lingering spiritual presence. Subsequent research has also called the authenticity of the dramatic logbook entries into question, suggesting they may have been a later, sensationalized invention, which only deepens the mystery of the men's state of mind. In 1971, the Flannan Isles Lighthouse was fully automated. Eilean Mor is once again home only to the birds and the wind. The disappearance of James Ducat, Thomas Marshall, and Donald McArthur was officially recorded as an accident, the men lost to the sea. Yet, the facts of the case resist simple explanation. The strange logbook entries describing a storm that did not exist, the breach of protocol by 3 veteran keepers, the single set of oilskins left behind, and the sheer force required to scar the cliff 60 meters above sea level all contribute to an enduring sense of profound unease. What exactly happened on that remote island in December of 1900 is unknown. The silence from Eilean Mor offers no answers, only the unsettling permanence of the mystery itself.